Hey everyone, it's Melody with Design by Melody. I'm here for the Sonshine Stamp Company design team today. I'm actually doing a 12 by 12 layout for you, and this is using a photo from last December. It is technically a Christmas photo, but I'm going to be using it on a birthday layout. Kaylin's birthday is December 2nd, and I didn't have a really good birthday photo for him last year, so I'm actually using a photo of him right before his Christmas program with preschool. So technically this is a Christmas photo, but I'm going to be using it for a birthday layout. Now, with Christmas being said, I hope you all are really enjoying your Christmas. It's right after Christmas here now, so I hope you spent a lot of time with your friends and family and just had some time to relax and kind of remember what Christmas is all about. And I just wish you all a wonderful Merry Christmas. Now, getting into the layout, the very first thing that I did was cut down my 12 by 12 white cardstock. I actually pulled out two pieces of white cardstock here, and I cut one down by about 3/4 of an inch on each side, and I'm going to, or I did adhere that kind of askew to the background, and I will be adding some stitching around that. I just like the tone on tone kind of subtle effect that the white on white with white stitching gives to this layout. Then the second thing I'm doing is actually pulling out a couple 12 by 12, not 12 by 12, 6 by 6 pads here, which I'll be using to layer behind my photo. I'm going for teals, navy blues, kind of that corally red color, and then grays as well. I'm just pulling out a couple here. Obviously, this is a lot more than what I'm going to end up using, but I wanted to have some options, and I really wasn't 100% sure which direction this layering was going to go. So I am first cutting down the white border. Now, I print my photos with a white border around the edge, so this was already there. But if you don't have a white border and you want to add a white border, just trim your photo down slightly and mount it on some white cardstock. It'll have the exact same effect, and you won't even be able to tell that it wasn't printed that way. I made my first layer this gray pattern paper. I just like kind of the subtle effect. I had thought about doing it directly on the teal, but I like the gray. It just adds a little bit of separation. Gray, I treat gray just like a neutral as I would a white. Actually, I like gray a lot more than I do black, honestly, because I feel like gray is not quite as bold as black is, and I know that sounds kind of dumb because obviously gray is not quite as bold as black, but a lot of people use black as a neutral, and it is, but to me, gray is a lot less harsh. Now I'm going to try a few different configurations here with my layering. I did some more vertically oriented, and then I'm adding a few horizontal strips down here at the bottom, but these horizontal strips are going to change. I felt like they were a little too bold for what I was going for, so I will change those and switch them up how they're layered, and then I will end up layering another horizontal strip down here at the bottom later, which you will see here in a moment. Just using all of these different scraps and pieces from the 6 by 6 paper pad and just layering them and cutting and layering and cutting, figuring out exactly what I want, how I want to do this. I don't do this type of layering often enough. I really enjoy the way that it looks, but I truly just don't do it enough, and I should do it a lot more than what I do, because I really enjoy the look of it. It's very nice to me. It's not I know that sounds dumb. It's very nice to me. No, it's very natural or organic looking to me. It doesn't look too planned out or too whatever. I like the natural look. I like it when it looks kind of seamless and very simple, and that's what this looks like to me. And I took that navy blue and teal strip that had been at the bottom, cut it down, and then added it to the sides. And then I did add one more horizontal, or not one more, but I ended up adding one horizontal piece at the bottom, and it's a gray and white pattern, so it's a lot more subtle. It's not quite as bold as the navy piece had been that was horizontal below the photo before. Now this is where I'm going to go add the stitching around the edges. It takes me just a moment. It's a very simple one outline border around the edge of my white 12 by 12 pieces that are matted on top of each other. Now I stitched inside the inner one, and because it's slightly askew, the stitching obviously is going to be slightly askew as well, but I like the emphasis that puts on the fact that the papers are not matted perfectly squared on top of each other. And it's still a tone on tone, white on white effect. It's white on white paper with a white thread around the edges. So I really like just the subtleness of that, and I just really like the way that it looks. Obviously, I think I've said that about 100 times now. This is where you can kind of see a little bit more where it's slightly askew. So the top left here, this is the back, but the top left is closer to the edge than the right was. And this is primarily going to be my layout here. Now I'm going to add a title, I'm going to add some stamping, I'm going to add a few other little bits and pieces here and there, but this is primarily how my layout looks. I took another scrap of that gray and white paper, and that's one of the layers that I use behind my photo. And I'm going to use the stamps from this stamp company, and these are called Lisa's Letters. I'm going to use these and stamp out years old, and I'm actually going to be using some Memento ink in London Fog, and it's a gray ink as well. And the words years old fit perfectly on this little piece of scrap paper that I had. You're going to see me do a boo-boo here, which I will fix later off camera. And so what I do is I put December 2nd, 2000. My son was not born in 2000. He was born in 2010. I don't know why I didn't catch this until later. You will not see this be corrected, but I can't find that pattern paper later whenever I realize it and go into to correct it. So this is actually on my photos at the end. I believe you're going to see the corrected one. If you don't see the corrected one, I'll tell you what it is. I end up just going back and stamping December 2nd, 2010. But I end up just putting it on plain white cardstock. So it looks exactly the same, but instead of teal, like it's the same size and everything, but instead of on a teal and white piece of paper, it's just on white cardstock. So that's his birthday. And I'm going to layer this little title piece on a piece of teal pattern paper, as you can see here. And the number 5 is actually just from some rubber alphabet stickers. And those are actually from Amy Tangerine. I'm sorry, they're thickers. They're Amy Tangerine thickers in Cutout is the font name, and it's in charcoal. These are fairly old, but I have just some little bits and pieces of those left. And what I've actually done, here's a tip for you guys. If you have any alphabet sticker sheets or thicker sheets that are almost completely used up, that you're trying to use up completely or get rid of, I have started leaving those near my desk, and I'm starting to pull them out for different things. So whenever you're looking at an alphabet sticker sheet or like a thicker sheet or something, you'll have asterisks or pound signs or numbers or dots. Some of them you see have chevron pieces. Some of them have other types of arrows. Some even have hearts and stars. So what I've started doing is I've started keeping about 4 or 5 of those near my desk, the ones that are almost completely used up. And I'm looking at them a little bit more frequently, but this is one of those right here. And this is where I'm pulling out the stars that were on here, the asterisks that were on here. And this is the other one. This is where I've got the number 5 from, but you can see these sticker sheets are almost completely used up. So I'm going through and just starting to use little bits and pieces, those things that kind of sometimes get left on a sticker sheet that you just don't end up using. I pulled out the star stamp from the Camping on Him stamp set from the shop, and I stamped that in a few different places on the layout, just adding a few little details. I wanted to keep this layout fairly simple, so adding just a few little details gives me exactly what I'm looking for. And then I'm stamping out the banner from the Planner Basic stamp set, and I'm just putting it on a few little bits and pieces of the papers that were left and create a small little border up here at the top. Now I will stitch across that little banner that's stuck on that border in just a moment to kind of bring in a little bit more of that stitching. And I will stitch right over top of my 5 years old title as well. It's not over top, it's over the edge, I should say. It just has 2 little lines along the edge. doing little stitching like that, if I stitch around the outside border of the layout, I like to add a few little bits of stitching somewhere in the middle of the page, because I just feel like it kind of brings everything together, keeps it cohesive, and then also just adds a little bit more without really adding a whole lot of bulk. Stitching is a great way to add something to your layout without adding bulk. I actually wish I stitched a little bit more, but the way that I have my sewing machine set up, and I feel like I need to put it somewhere else because I just don't feel like it's quite the most effective way for me to use it. But my sewing machine is set up on a table, and I keep the cover over it, but there's not a chair there. So I actually end up standing up most of the time whenever I'm doing some small little sewing projects like stitching on this layout. And then I also keep it threaded with white thread most of the time, because I find that that's the thread that I use most frequently. So having it already threaded like that, it kind of helps me be more likely to use it. Alright, and whenever I stitch, I always secure the threads on the back of the cardstock with some washi tape, because I don't back stitch whenever I'm using, whenever I do stitching on my layout, I don't back stitch at all. Just cleaning it up. And I do pull the threads to the back, as you can see that I'm doing right here. Now, I've already used a couple different stamp sets. Let me just go ahead and tell you what they are. There are 4 different ones that I'm using on this one. I have Lisa's Letters, which are that's the font stamp that I use for the words years and old. And then I've also used the Planner Basic stamps, which are the banners that I just showed you. I use the calendar stamp set, which is what I stamped December 2, 2000 in, and we'll go back and change that to December 2, 2010. And then I'm also using that Camping on Him stamp set for those stars. It's a little star cluster. I believe there are 3 small stars and 1 large star. Yes, that's exactly right. And it's already clustered together. Now you could change it. You could cut them apart if you needed to, or only ink up certain little bits of it if you'd like. But I like the little cluster. It makes it really easy. I only have to stamp once. I don't have to stamp 2 or 3 times to get the same look. I felt like I needed something on this edge of the photo, so I'm just cutting down this little Project Life card that I had a little bit left of, and it's just got a gray and white pattern on it, so it just adds a little something to the edge there. And this really finishes this layout for you. There's no journaling on here. It's really just, hey, this is my son at 5 years old, and that's it. So I'm adding another little tiny banner off the edge of this title piece, and then I'm done with this layout. Thank you so much for joining me today. Make sure you check out the description box below for links to the blog, as well as the stamp shop for the photo for the photo sets or alphabet sets. Gosh, I'm having a hard time. For the stamp sets. All right, guys, thank you so much. Have a great day and Merry Christmas. Bye.